Hey guys, it's Allison here, and I have something a little bit different for the blog today. Do you remember this? This layout was inspired by a wedding cake. So it was for the previous unexpected inspiration. Right now we are dealing with store window displays, but this was when we were talking about how wedding cakes inspired our layouts. And when I was creating this, I had quite a bit of the paste left over, and I made a few backgrounds for cards, and I was always intending to film something and then kind of never got around to it. I did already make one card. I do have some film footage of that, which I'm not quite sure how I'll incorporate, but we'll see. But I'm going to post a picture of it right here. So I've already given that card to my aunt. It was for her 90th birthday. So I don't physically have it to show you guys, but I've got a few other backgrounds and things inside this box. So let's take a look. I opened it earlier to sort of figure out if it was the right box. I have a lot of these iris cases that are holding various things, but I haven't really looked at what I made previously. It's been a while, so let's refresh our memories together. All right, so this was one I had used. I had extra watercolor paint, and so I had just brushed it onto some watercolor paper, and then I had used a doily stencil and put the paste through that. It's got, I don't know if, it's not super shiny actually, but it's got lovely texture. So that's one. This was my practice piece, so that I could turn into something. Oh, I got a stencil from previous. We were practicing, but all sorts of things in here. Oh, I die cut some vellum. This was another one I made. So I had stenciled, I had swiped the paste through a stencil, and then I had added was that distress glitter, I think. Hopefully the camera is picking up all that sparkle. It's not a Christmas stencil, but I'm kind of getting Christmas vibes from that, so that might have to turn into a Christmas card. There's the die I used for the vellum. I've got various bits of paper, scraps. I think these were all left over from actually making my layout. I've got the jewels. A little bit of extra stamping, and then I've got stamps and die cuts, all sorts of things that I can use on my cards. So let's just pull all those out. Got some, oh, those are the inside of the vellum, and then I've also got all those doilies and things that I had pulled aside. So I was looking for those enamel dots. Funny what you find. What's all this? Ah, all the other flowers that I die cut for my layout and didn't use. Okay, so I've got lots in here. I'm going to take everything out of this box and get rid of the box. It's a bit cumbersome. Okay, so what are we dealing with here? That is scraps. Let's maybe deal with this one first. Because this one is designed to go on the front of a slimline card, I get a piece of cardstock and cut it to 8.5 inches by 7 inches and then score at 3.5. That to me is a good size for a slimline card, 8.5 inches wide by 3.5 inches tall. And then I take the panel and I just trim it down to fit. Now I like to add a little sort of border around my card panels. So it is a little bit smaller than 8.5 inches by 3.5 inches. Like I usually take about 1/8 of an inch off. so that, yeah, so I can get this kind of frame of the card base behind, which I really like that look. So I go through my stamp sets to see what kind of sentiments I can find. And this one from Waffle Flower has a whole lot of sentiments on it, and it comes with dies so you can cut them out. So that's kind of a winner in my book. And I know I had talked about turning this into a Christmas card, but I decided against that, and I chose a more generic sentiment. I believe it says celebrate your special day or something like that. So that way this card can be for any occasion, birthdays, anniversaries, weddings, that kind of thing. And I'm using the Distress Oxide inks in Chipped Sapphire. Kind of goes with all the other blues that I've been using with these same products, like when I made my layout and that kind of thing. And I love my Distress Oxide. So there we go. So I've die cut it, I've cut it out, and now I need to find things to go behind it, because it's not big enough. It's not a big enough sentiment to hold the card, basically. I try that silver doily. The paste and then the Distress glitter really gives me the feel of sort of like a frosty look. So I was thinking I could accent that with the silver, but it really didn't work. So I went to my die cuts and I chose this blue sort of vine look and these paper flowers that I'm just layering on top of each other. That blue paper flower is the one that I watercolored in my 12 by 12 process video, and then didn't use on my layout, but that's okay. I get to use it here on this card, and it's gorgeous. So I entertained some of the other die cuts, and I will be completely honest, I don't like the shape of any of those flowers, and which is why I end up not using any of them. And spoiler alert, they basically all go in the recycling at the end of this, because I just really don't like the shape of those flowers. But it does need a little something extra. So I go into my pack of sequins. These are a Maggie Holmes set. I can't remember which line they're from, but there are these iridescent butterflies as well as round white sequins, and I decide not to add any other colors. Like there's gold sequins in there and I think pink sequins as well, but I want to stick with just kind of the blue and white scheme and just add those the butterflies and the white sequins. And I am using liquid glue. Now, I always glue down my sequins with liquid glue, but on this particular card, I'm using more glue than I would normally use to stick down my sequins, because there's so much texture. The paste plus the Distress glitter, it's really, there's a whole lot of texture on the front of this card. So it needs some extra glue, which is also why I put the acrylic blocks over top of those paper flowers, just to give it a little bit of time to set. And now I am adding some pearls on top of the sequins, because, you know, more is more. And they did feel a little bit unfinished, and I'm really glad that I added the pearls, because it really helped elevate this card. And now I will just put some acrylic blocks on those and let that dry. The next one I'm going to work on is using this sort of practice piece that I made. So I practiced the technique of the paste to get the ombre sort of icing layers, if you want to call it that. And then also I practiced the gold drips. And I didn't use, like I redid the whole thing for my actual layout, but I still had the piece of paper that I had done all these practice techniques on. And at the time, I did think that it would probably be cool embossed. It's got like the paste is smooth but thick, and it just has this beautiful feel to it. And I really thought, you know what, like I bet I could run that through an embossing folder and it would be amazing. And it is, like, it's just so gorgeous. So I trimmed it down to fit on the front of an A2 card. So an A2 card is 4¼ inches by 5½ inches. So it's just a little less than that. So again, I get my little white border, and I felt I wanted it to stand out from the background a little bit. So I put some Distress Oxide ink around the edges. However, I didn't wait long enough and I got ink all over my hands and a little bit on the card front. So you just see me wiping with a baby wipe. Distress Oxide ink takes longer to dry, and I didn't give it any time to dry. So that was my fault, really. But no harm, no foul. I cleaned everything off, and you can still see the ink around the edges, but it's much softer, which actually worked out way better. And now it's time to try and figure out what I'm going to put on the front and how I'm going to put it on the front. Initially, I thought I would use that giant happy birthday stamp, but it's too big and the fonts are kind of wrong for this card. So I go with one of the smaller happy birthday stamps from that waffle flower stamp set. I wonder if I can bring that doily in. I start playing with the vellum. I'm really undecided. But I like the look of the vellum on top of the card, and the gold stars help bring in the gold drips. So I think it's all going to work. And then I rip apart that doily thinking maybe I can figure out some way to layer that either in front or behind the vellum and just, I don't know, give a kind of cool effect. But I haven't quite figured that all out yet. Now, Distress Oxide ink, because it takes a little bit longer to dry, can be problematic if you're trying to stamp it onto vellum. So I switched to a Simon Says Stamp dye ink, which will dry a lot faster, but it's also navy, so I'm keeping the same color scheme. And I did double stamp it. If you are stamping on vellum, I highly recommend some sort of stamp platform, because that way if you need to double stamp it, it will stay in place. But also, I find stamping on vellum, if you're just using an acrylic block, it's slippery. So your block can move, and you're not trying to make it move, but it just moves. So having a stamp platform of some description is really helpful. So you see, I just layered up those ripped pieces of doily behind this bit of vellum. And I have already put glue behind the stars. See, that's the other problem with vellum, is where to put the glue, because you will see wherever it is. So I had already put it behind the stars, but there's quite a bit of vellum to the left and right that don't have glue on them. So now I'm trying to figure out how to get it stuck down so it's not all flapping in the wind. And I decide to use these gold dots. So I just put a dot of glue where I wanted it, and then a gold dot on top, and you would never know. So that is card number 2. And now it is time, it's time to adhere this one. I forgot to adhere it to the card base, and everything was still pretty wet, so I didn't want to risk ruining it as I glued it down. So take this opportunity to get that stuck down. 2 cards down, 1 to go. This is the piece that I watercolored and stenciled on top of, and I already know that I want to make this into a square card. I feel like that circular doily image would just kind of work really well in the middle of a square card. But the question is, how do we get a sentiment onto this card? So I left this part in because there's some value in seeing that I play with things, I try things, and then they don't work, and so I get rid of them. But I tried stamping this giant happy birthday in 2 different colors onto this doily, thinking that I would cut it down and have it fit inside that doily stencil. However, I hate it. I probably should have used a round die, but I don't think I would even have liked it then because it's just too big. So now I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do, and I'm really struggling. So I decide to just build my card base and let my brain sort of think about it in the background, so to speak. 6x6 cards require a 12x12 piece of paper, so I grab one off my shelf and score it and cut it and all those good things. I don't make a lot of 6x6 cards, but I do have a box of 6x6 envelopes, so I should probably make more of these. Once I put it on to the card base, I realized that it needs something behind it. It's looking a little lonely. So I start auditioning all the other pattern papers that were in that bin. And that yellow one is kind of nice, but the first blue stripe one that I saw is the winner. So I trim that down, add some adhesive, and build my card. And I'm still trying to figure out how I can make this into a card once I have everything glued in place, because it's all very well to have layers of paper, but you need to have something on the front to tell you what it's about. So I go back into my die cut basket and I pull out a few of these, and I think maybe I can make kind of like a little bouquet to the side and almost turn this doily into a wreath. So I pull out these and I decide I've already got that Distress Oxide in the saltwater taffy. I've got that sort of pink introduced into my brain, not so much into my projects yet, but it's in my brain. And I thought, you know what? I could use some of those pink wooden button type embellishments, add the pink ink, and then maybe turn this into something else. So it's going to be a Mother's Day card. I use the Happy Mother's Day sentiment in the pink Distress Oxide and get that cut out, and that gives me a direction, which is very exciting when you're trying to build a card and you're struggling. Suddenly it starts to all come together, and then it doesn't take that long to finish. So I want my sentiment popped up, so I'm adding enamel dots, or not enamel dots, pop dots to the back, and then I will glue down this sort of bouquet of branches and things. And I had pulled out, I think 3, maybe 4 flower die cuts. Yeah, I think I had 4, but it was too many, so I just ended up gluing down 2 with my little popped up sentiment on top, and then I can start embellishing. I've got some sequins. Now I can pull in the pink ones from that little packet, and then I've got those little wooden buttons with the pink centers that I can add as well. I love how these pops of pink help soften this card. It's a wonderful addition to this color scheme. The other cards are quite monochromatic, I suppose you could say, but I like the pops of pink. But it needs a little bit something else, so I go to those blue enamel dots and I add some of the hearts in the palest of the blue. So there you have it, 3 more cards from the sort of scraps that I made when I was putting together my wedding cake inspired layout. Lots of texture paste, glitter. I love the monochromatic look and the hits of gold here. I was able to get in a whole lot of the die cuts that I did. So yeah, so super fun. Thank you for joining me. And I look forward to doing this again for another unexpected inspiration. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.